So I have a class, I teach 5 or 6 classes, and I had a student call another student gay. And we were kind of transitioning into something else, and I turned to the kid that said it and said, "We don't say that in here." And then the other kid kept saying, "He called me gay, he called me gay." I'm like, it's okay. He's not gonna say that anymore. Let's just move on. And he just kept freaking out, like really upset that this kid called him gay. And I just kept saying, "It's okay, let's just move on. Go up to the board, you need to be writing this down, whatever." And he's like, "Well, what would you do if someone called you a lesbian?" I said, "Well, I'd be okay with it because I am a lesbian." And I'm pretty sure that's the only time all year that the entire class was silent. And another student yelled from across the room, "You idiot!" So it's obvious most of them had figured it out. And this kid, like, I just don't think he was thinking about what he was saying. He was trying to make a point.
So I started the first day of school, and I know, I'd only been on hormones for a month, but I had already started transitioning. My voice was slightly different, and kids asked me if I had a cold, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm healthy as can be. And the district stance that I would just not talk about it was so silly, based on the fact that I was going to look different. I was going to appear much more masculine in a short amount of time.
Okay, so these students, they said, "Miss Amanda, are you married?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, do you have a boyfriend?" And I'm like, "No." And then one of my little second graders like, "That means you're a virgin." I'm like, "Okay, so if I'm not married and I don't have a boyfriend, then I'm a virgin." Okay.
And she says, "Well, you shouldn't be married to a man." I said, "Oh, well, who should I be married to?" She was like, "A woman." And she like kind of rolled her head, and I was like, "What kind of woman?" And she was like, "You should be married to a black woman." And I was like, "Oh, so that's what you believe, and you think I shouldn't be married to a white man?" And collectively, all 9 kids are like, "He's white?" And I was like, wow, that's your biggest concern right now.
I think one thing that bothers me is that, especially the younger students, they'll ask, do you have a husband, or do you have children, or are you married? And I just have to be very vague, give vague answers. So I feel like I'm not truly representing who I am, and that makes me sad.
So I took a deep breath, and I said, "I have a partner, and her name's Sarah. And if I could get married, I would marry Sarah." Fortunately, a girl stepped up and goes, "That's not a bad word. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just how people are." And so I said, "That's right. That's how I am, and I'm proud of who I am." So I knew I should go tell my principal in case there were any complaints. So after school, I approached her and told her about the conversation. And my principal said, "Well, you didn't do anything wrong, but it's important to keep things appropriate and not talk about sex in 2nd grade."
In middle school, it's funny because they're going through puberty, and I just recently went through a second puberty, so I can relate to them in a way that I would say most 27-year-olds can't relate because it has been so long. And I just find myself laughing under my breath a lot.
I think that we're on the brink of being a much more open society. We're not quite there, but there are going to have to be people who put themselves out there and make themselves vulnerable. And sometimes that's not going to go well. And a lot of times people are going to surprise you and receive you so much better than you think that they will.